Hello, I'm Michael Redmond, professional Nine-Dan, and I'm here to give a commentary for the Mind Games World Championship for Pair Go. Today we're at the second round, or the semifinals, you might say, and I'm going to start with a game between Ichiriki Ryo and Fujisawa Rina for Japan, and their opponents are Park Jeongwan and Choi Jeong from Korea. And so all four of these players are champions in their single matches, but they're also, of course, going to be very formidable in pair Go also. So at this point, we're waiting for the game moves to come in. The other pairs at this point are Iyama and Kato Keiko from Japan, and they're playing against Naiwai and Chen Yaoye from China. So I'll be visiting that game later in this broadcast. Okay, looks like the first move is coming in the lower right part of the board. A bit unusual. It could be the angle of the camera. And black plays a 3-4 point. Let's see. In this game, I do have the colors right. Ichiriki and Fujisawa have the black stones, and Choi and Park have the white stones. So white played Jinseo. And this is an opening where black could play a Chinese opening, or it would be, yes, this Kakari, it looks like it's a Kobayashi opening style. If white answers here, then this used to be a very popular opening, and it still is played. But yes, white plays here. After computers, studying Go with computers became very popular in recent years, allowing the double Kakari here, this one, has become more popular. But black did not do that immediately. Black played the Kosumi, a very solid move. I believe from the rotation, it must be Iyama who played that. He played a very solid move. In recent years, it's been more common to play the knight's move, but there's a pros and cons to both moves. Like when black plays the knight moves here, white does have options later on to slide into the corner with moves like this. So in a way, the Kosumi is stronger towards the corner. White plays another Kakari. A very probing type way to play. Black could play simply here, or black could play some kind of a pincer on the lower side. Black plays the low answer here. And so already there's a lot of points on the board that are important. Like once white has played an approach move here, it's pretty normal for white to continue with something on the right side. But also a move such as this on the lower side is a big move. It's become popular to play on the fourth line. Previously, the orthodox way of playing would be an extension on the third line. And also, after the Kakari here in the upper left, that corner is big too. So there's a lot of big points all over the place. With black, I would probably continue in the upper left, but it's conceivable to play on the right side at this point. Okay, we have a double Kakari in the upper left, and white plays the attachment. Black plays here, and allowing the double Kakari and continuing to this opening, this Joseki, has become very popular for both sides actually, but especially it's been a fairly successful strategy for white to allow this Joseki to happen. It is still the most popular move for black to play the attachment here. There's also a Joseki like this that is supposed to be fairly even. But in recent years, I've seen a lot more of this attachment. And it's considered bad for white to wedge here when black gets a good shape. And you can see white does have a stone here that is not in the best position, so it's not usually played. The most often played move is this one, in which case black will play here. And a common Joseki would be this one. With the final black move here, there's a number of variations to that move. There's other moves black can consider. And this is changed to have white play this attachment sometimes. There's a lot of variations to this Joseki. In the game, white cut here, and it depends on the ladder, of course. So the ladder favors white with this stone here working to stop the ladder. And if black plays this way, white can profit by breaking into the corner. So this would probably be good for white, taking the stone in the corner. So black connects, and white takes in the ladder. Black connects underneath. And instead of finishing the ladder, which would be the normal move, white played this corner enclosure. Black plays an attachment here. Basically, any move in this vicinity has potential to become a ladder breaking move. If white answers here, it's not going to be ladder breaking yet. Yes. So a more clear-cut move would be, for instance, something like this, which would be losing less in the local position as black sets up the potential to escape from the ladder. Black attaches, white plays a hane. And so the question is how to take advantage of the potential to escape the ladder here. Actually, this attachment, if white had answered the simple way this way, it would give black the ideal double move in the lower right. So this would be the best possible shape for black. But when white actually answers it locally, black has to find a way to make a threat to escape with the ladder. So there's a lot of complicated reading to be done, and black doesn't really want to have a complete disaster here in the lower right by the time black gets that ladder. So cutting here is pretty normal, and white extends, showing that white is willing to take a small loss locally if white can maintain this ladder here. So for instance, the simple way for black to play is to go after the one stone like this, but this is basically what white is asking for. Black connects, and white can squeeze here. So locally, this is a good profit for black, but black has not made such an efficient use of the potential of escaping in the ladder. So any moves that will break the ladder now have become gradually smaller. So this is the variation that white is trying to induce. And in order to avoid that, one thing black might try, let's see, is you have to think is the extension a ladder breaking move. And every time you think of a new move, you have to read the ladder, which comes across here and ends with white playing an Atari here to hit the wall here. So actually, this is not a ladder breaking move. So otherwise, maybe black can play underneath here and a connection. And if a big fight erupts here, then there is potential for black to eventually make a ladder breaking move and win the ladder. But these two white stones are just waiting for the ladder here. So eventually there will be black stones curling around to get to this point with white chasing in this fashion. And these stones, you can see they do have a lot to do with the ladder. So it looks like they've changed the orientation of the board, but I'll keep it with, maybe I should start again. They've changed the orientation of the board to have the black move starting in the upper right corner. So I'll just start again to make it, to make my diagram fit what they have on the screen. So this was the point where this would have been a much easier to understand ladder breaking move, whereas this was allowing white to play strongly here, and we're going to have a fight here locally. But these two, it'll take a while for black to break the ladder after these two stones are played. So white covers here, And the idea behind this is compared to this way of capturing, in which case white gets to play an Atari here and then squeeze from this side. If black comes from this side and white actually gives up the 2 stones, then it will be less forcing moves for white. So black gets a better, it becomes a better way for black to capture white's stones in the corner. So that's the idea behind what black did in playing this Atari and then connecting on top. So white does not opts to try to make a life in the corner. And plays an interesting move here with the kosumi. Now the idea here is that if white plays here, and we get, for instance, a shape like this, then white needs to add a stone to this anyway. So by playing this move, which seems to be getting less, actually white is going to find a better way to live. Black still has to play on this side. If black plays here, white can just win. White has 5 liberties and black has only 3. So this would be an easy win for white. When black plays here or here on the left, black played here, then white can live while capturing a black stone. So this is, compared to going straight down, this actually gives white slightly more territory in the corner. So that was cleverly played by white. 7 points in the corner. And so now the fight will continue here, and fairly soon white will again have to worry about the ladder there. So for instance, if black pushes here, at this point the ladder is still favoring white, but we can see that fairly soon. For instance, if we have something like this, then already the ladder will favor black now. Yes. And so it's, the ladder here is still a big issue in relation to this fight that is happening on the upper side. So this is actually one point in the game where white could consider adding a move to this position to fix the ladder problem. And then black would be able to capture these 2 stones. So that would lead to a relatively peaceful result. But in the game, white jumped out. So the ladder still favors white, with the white stones coming along this diagonal and black just hitting this stone to be captured. So the black stones would be coming inside the white stones would be coming along here, and black stones would be inside a kind of a web. So black is not able to escape yet, but if black adds 1 stone here and white answers here, let's see. That actually becomes a strange ladder, which is going to be good for white again. This is sort of interesting. It comes along here, and then the ladder changes course to go in this direction. And so instead of doing it on the board, I think anyone who is interested could just chase the ladder for themselves. It's going to take a lot of moves, but eventually I think white's going to be able to turn the ladder around so it hits this stone eventually. So the ladder actually is good for white. So instead black played here. And after this, the ladder is already favoring black. So at this point the ladder is favoring black, but the fight in the center here is heating up so much that the timing for escaping here is now going to become very difficult. And this move locally is working because although white can break through here, black will cut. And after that, black has the push through and cut here to look forward to. So white's position inside here is a bit cramped in a way. So black is playing in a very aggressive fashion, but locally it's holding together just barely. And also there's the threat of this escaping from the ladder. So tactically it's a very complicated position here. For instance, if white simply plays a knight's move here, I would expect that black covers here to get a solid connection, also threatening the cut here in the center. And so that would be a nice solid shape for black. And even if white answers locally, to get rid of to get rid of this cut with sente, black will get a very solid connection on the outside. Very good shape here. So the question for white is, does white want to do something, for instance, do something like this to put a weakness, leave a weakness in black's shape before playing the knight's move? Or does white want to try to find something else besides the knight's move? White did curl around here once, and black will surely cover. And the question is, what is white going to do now? White doesn't really have enough strength to attack black in that area immediately. So I would expect white runs out. Oh, but black didn't cover. Okay, so this was kind of a surprising order of moves. The ladder does favor black. So now the moment that the ladder favors black, black is attacked here. But the upper side is a very important area too. So white attacks first in the upper side. And although this area, if black does end up saving the two stones, then white's going to be falling to pieces basically. The upper side is a very important area too. And while the fighting happens, there is potential for white. For instance, let's just assume something like this. There is potential for the ladder to become good for white in the near future. So that's why I was expecting black to continue with the local move. And I didn't really expect black to escape from the ladder. The timing of this escaping move is always very delicate and hard to be sure of. But this makes the game extremely difficult because black cannot really afford to add a stone here and allow white to capture the upper side on a large scale. That would be almost 60 points just on the upper side if we count some points for the corner. And so that would be very big, and it would be territorially more important than black's gain in the lower left. Oh, but that is what black did. So I don't really approve of the way black played, but at least it's consistent in that once black has allowed this attack, it probably is just too dangerous for black to try to save both sides. Okay, so if we say that this is going to be a white territory, white did play the jump. It's about 50 points if one draws a line somewhere around here. So if I'm counting some territory for white in the corner, then that's how I got to the number of about 60 points. And so in this area, usually you would not expect white to try to save these stones because actually cutting here is almost bigger than saving these three stones is. So that's almost 30 points that black has there. And then black has an area where black has influence. But that's just about all of black's assets. So for the time being, this upper side, which looks like white's territory, is bigger. But we might see black trying to do something there. There's still some aji with an attachment here or an attachment here. So there is some aji there that black might be able to make use of. Also, an extension on the right side with potential for white to play something like this to start an attack on black on the right side is a big move. So something like this is also very important. So black did play an attachment, not the one I was suggesting. This is also a tetsuji. If white plays on top, then black will bump against the one stone here. And if white extends, then black, this looks like it's going to be able to live on the side. So otherwise, if white extends here, there is an issue of bad aji with the peep here. And also there's this kind of move that would be able to give a living shape for black. But, for instance, this kind of thing would easily live, but it would not be a great profit. White plays a hane underneath in the actual game, and black plays a hane on top. So if white cuts here, surely white will be able to capture these stones, but black will be able to play an atari from the left. And for instance, something like this might happen, in which case black is getting some compensation for losing this group. And white's territory is reduced to something slightly less than 40 points, maybe about 40 points. So that would be a satisfactory result for black. So white pulls back. So now does black have any potential here? Pushing against here and covering is just about the only way that black has potential to escape here. But it does look a bit heavy. Oh, it is what black did. It does look a bit heavy in that the connection here is not so easy. But it looks like black's going to try to save the whole thing, or at least make an attempt and see how white refutes it. For instance, if white plays here, maybe white's going to capture something. But this would be, black would be getting something out of this. Because white would still be in danger of being cut off here. And so there would still be some aji after black has already reduced the white territory. And this is slightly less than 50 points in territory if we call the whole area of white's territory. Oh, so white extended and covered here. So white's very keen on capturing those black stones. And this area on the right is about 30 points, and then white has some more territory in the corner. And then there's this weak black group in between. It looks like white will not be able to kill it outright. The most aggressive move would be to play here. This would actually be a very close fight. So this could happen. The simplest move would be to cover here, but this would have allowed black to stop white's connection underneath. For instance, if black plays on the outside, then I suppose black didn't like the idea of white connecting underneath. With black having not the best shape, with liberties filled, a deficiency of liberties, which is called damezumari here in Japan. So black cuts here. The question is, if white cuts, it's going to turn into a fight to capture. And this fight is one that white wins by one move. So this would be bad for black. So the question is, how is black going to avoid that? And it could be that black was, let's see, black doesn't really have co-threats. This could have been dangerous for black, but white didn't actually do that. Instead, white covered here, which allows black to escape towards the center. And so it's a loosely connected shape. If white plays here and black plays here, it's a very similar shape to what we had before. So it's bad aji for white to try to capture it with this kind of move. It would be bad aji. And black would be getting something back, at least towards the center. For instance, with something like this. And forcing moves from the outside. So this might be the kind of thing that black is aiming at. And this is something like 55 points of white territory. So it's not really expanded too much in this exchange, which has given black some potential in the center. So if black was completely keen on saving these stones, this is the move that black would have played. Black is trying to play slightly more lightly. And white plays here. And this move is removing the threat of the double peep. This move here, which potentially could make trouble for white. Like if this happens, and if we have something like this, and this would be bad for white. This would be a win for black. In actual practice, white might push through here. It could get complicated. But there is that threat of the double peep. So white plays here. Mostly we're getting rid of that. If black plays here, white can play a hane here to capture the stones from the third line down. So black plays a hane once, threatening to push through, or the peep, and then black extends. So that's settled that, the fact that black has escaped, and white has almost 30 points on the right here, and something that looks like about 10 points in the corner. And I think black's done fairly well to escape with half of the side there. So the game could turn into a fairly close game. White plays a double two-space extension on the left side. It's a very important area because if black plays, for instance, even something, it's a question of how close black gets to the corner. But either move would be threatening to slide in here and put pressure on the whole corner group. So, and also, of course, obviously black is mapping out some territory on the side here. So this area is a huge move. So white extends on the side. It's not as if that whole area, like this box here, it's not as if the whole area is going to be white's territory necessarily. Black still has options to jump in. But white does have probably about half of that area, the area in the corner area. About 10 points of it is pretty sure to be white's territory. So if we count a few points for this white group on the right, white is at least 45 points, maybe approaching 50 points in territory. Black still is sort of indefinite on the lower side. I'd say black probably has about 30 points of territory with some thickness to go with it. But black does have to continue taking care of this group in the center. For instance, a move somewhere around here would be that was played, a thick move in the center. So now black's loosely connected in the center. The two stones here are not all that important. Like if white really goes after them, maybe black can afford to sacrifice two stones. For instance, it's not realistic, but if we assume something like this happens, there's no problem with black pulling back to this side if black's worried about the connection, and just sacrificing the two stones, which are not important at this stage. In fact, black would be profiting more by building a wall towards the lower side. So that's why it's not going to go after those two stones. In this area, when white does attack, it's probably going to be from the center. So for instance, the closest white would come would be, this would be the most direct, and you might even say vulgar move that would be insisting that black tries to connect up. So instead of doing that, white shifts to the lower side, and black plays here. So in the lower side, obviously black is in an offensive position, so black's going to be making some territory here and probably consolidating this area into something like 25 points, making about 35 points of territory while attacking white. And of course that's very fluid because it all depends on how the players handle it and how dangerous white wants it to become. And then there's these undecided areas on the left side and the right side. So black has to use those areas skillfully in order to catch up to the approximately 50 points that white has in territory. I think this is a good time to show you one other game that is being played today. the other game of the semifinals. Okay, the other game has Iyama Yuta and Kato Keiko is white, representing Japan. And Naiwai and Chen Yaoye as black, representing China. Okay, so this looks like it's another game with black playing star points and white playing 3-4 point and a 3-3 point. So I'm going to guess the first few moves, but fairly soon we're going to see the game's going to be shown to me. Okay, so white started with the 3-3 point here, and black played another star point. White played the 3-4 point. So black plays a low kakari again. White answers with the kosumi. And black plays this. And again, in recent years, we're seeing a lot less of the sanrensei and a lot more of this low shimari. So we've seen a very similar game in the first round of this tournament. And again, white jumps into the 3-3 point. So this is very similar to patterns that we see in a lot of top professional games. And people just love to jump into the 3-3 point now, when just a few years ago it was kind of taboo. It wasn't allowed. And in this case, instead of playing the extension that was seen in the first round here, black is going to play this joseki and use the cut. So this is a point where sometimes white cuts, but in this tournament we're seeing the players play this version of the joseki, in which case white gets a very solid position in the corner, and the connection here is not forcing, but black also gets to close off the right side here to make a moyo. So this seems to be the most modern, popular opening. So white often plays a peep after the 3-3 invasion, but if black connects, then it's just going to be a kikashi. So it's quite common for black to be playing like this towards the side. And white just leaves it and plays this pincer, a very big move on the left side. And black plays the katatsuki here, the shoulder hit. And it's very interesting that the computer programs, the AIs that play Go, also, while they love to jump into the 3-3 point when the opponent has played the star point, when the opponent has played the 3-3 point, they also like to play this shoulder hit to get the same position. Like you wonder whose turn it is now, because the computers play both ways. And so it seems that the evaluation of this position is that it's playable for both sides. To play a shoulder hit against a 3-3 point, and it's also playable for both sides. Like in this position in the lower right corner, when white jumps into the 3-3 point. So this is in the first round today. We saw black extend and white slide, and then we saw black cover on the third line. So that also is a very common joseki. In this game, black has jumped, and we're seeing this version of the joseki, which is also it's a basic joseki that's been around at least for several decades. And the fact that it's not hundreds of years is actually worth comment, because in the Edo era, the golden era of Japan, playing the 3-3 point as the first move in a corner was sort of frowned upon. And so it was not played very much. This shoulder hit here is actually a ladder breaking move. For the ladder here, it's going to hit the ladder, yes. So even if black crawls especially, it's going to be a ladder hitting move. So black adds a stone here. and white plays a hane. Black will cover. White plays a hane underneath. Connecting here is not really worth mentioning. It's a very bad move. Playing the Atari here and allowing black to take one stone and then connecting. This gives white a potential hane here, in this shape here. Actually having the connection here is an important move that sets up this move next. So it's worthwhile forcing black to capture actually. And black covers. White takes once. Black connects. So that finishes that area for the time being. White plays the hane. So white didn't want to allow black to play the hane instead. This is a point where, yes, black, this was a chance here for black to switch to the upper side, to the left side that is. And we can see that this stone there's potential that it will come under fire at this point. The shape move is to play a hane. Black extends. And white has to do something with this stone. If it gets closed in, it's going to be very difficult to lift. So white plays a knight's move. Black's probably going to curl around anyway. So the idea is that this might be a bit too close to the wall that black is about to build. So white plays an interesting move here, the knight's move, and black curls around anyway. So if we assume something like this and something like this, which is not what happened in the game, if we assume something like this and something like this, for instance, white has a slightly more light position, a light shape on the left side than if white had played here and allowed the peep here. And something like this might happen. This would be a bit more heavy for white. So that explains the meaning behind this knight's move. And so immediately black peeped here, threatening to cut it off. So that's the black hitting the weak point of this knight move. And white just curls around on the outside. White's offering to give up one stone maybe, depending on how black goes around. But black is trying to attack the whole side. White pushes out. And black will continue splitting white on a large scale just to make a large scale attack on white starting from the left side of the board. Black is reinforcing this group that black has in the upper left to enable black to come around on top of white in the center, I believe. Otherwise, this move would not be very good because it strengthens white on the upper side. So black there has to be a reason for this move, which is to close off the center, hopefully. So this is a wildly aggressive move. The normal shape, of course, would be to extend here. But instead, what black plays here, white connects, and black actually cuts here. So this is a kind of a change in direction. Black is going to allow white out in this area, but hopefully for black, black's going to get some central territory in return. So black extends. Maybe white just connects. Oh, no, he didn't. So white extends. This threatens a net here, a geta, to capture the two stones. So black has to answer that. And interesting to see how black answers in a fashion that puts pressure on these two stones as much as possible. And now black plays this move. So this was set up by the move earlier here, because if white answers in the corner, white might play here once anyway. If white answers in the corner, then black can cut here to capture 3 stones. So this is what black was setting up. All because of this exchange here. So white connected, and black plays a hane, and goes straight down. So this is a live shape for black. This is black is alive in the corner. And the whole point of this maneuver here was to cut these 2 stones off. Hopefully for black, this is becoming a black territory. The white group is not 100% alive yet. It still has to connect up to something. So white plays here. But white's not giving up these 2 stones so easily. Means that white will have to deal with 2 weaknesses, which is this group on the left here and this group in the center. So white has to manage both of those weaknesses while this fight continues. It looks very dangerous for white, but of course if white can pull that off, then if white can erase the whole center and save this group also, then black will be running low on territory. So decisive fight is already started here. This is a key point in that if black pushes through and cuts here, white is threatening the squeeze starting with this. So this would be bad for black. And even if we assume this kind of shape, this is still making kind of a squeeze shape that strengthens white on the outside. So this is a key point. And black answered here. And again, white filled a liberty to make this connection here forcing. Black jumps, white extended. So now white is pretty much connected in the center. And black is starting to form a territory on the right half of the board, actually. Black connects. White pushes through. It's hard to see where the center of this fight is. Oh, black didn't answer. Black came on the upper side. This is also a big move. And white dives into the right side. And the position here in the center, if black saves the two stones, is still going to be difficult. But for the time being, white's attacking the right side territory. So tactically, this is a very complicated position. Black jumps here. And black has finished off this. The idea is to kill this white stone. Make sure it doesn't connect up to anything. And in the meantime, black is looking at the weakness of this group when black plays something to save the two stones here. So I believe we might have caught up. Let's see. We've caught up. Yes. So locally, going back to this move that black played on the upper side, this reinforced black's connection from the center to black's corner stones here. It doesn't really threaten white in the center, because if black pushes through this side, this is a connected position. If black pushes through this side, again, even if black cuts, white can capture these two stones usually. And so there's a little oddity there, but it's, for instance, black can push against here and maybe capture two white stones. But it's not going to kill the whole white group. Like, white can still make eyes for the entire group. The entire group is going to be alive when white does something like this and sacrifices two stones. So, although black has some potential there, the more important thing about this move is that black has made some territory and secured a connection to the cornerstones. So white plays here. And with this exchange, white has made some territory on the right side, making it a living shape, more or less. And so black returns to the center. So this is a very exciting fight here, you might say. Just to take a quick look at territory, white has more than 10 points here. You could probably call that about 15 points, because white can probably expand into the side a little bit here. This is less than 10 points. So slightly more than 20 points in all. Small territory here, which is less than 10 points. And this territory is pretty hard to determine also. So this is probably less than 10 points also. So in all, white has less than 40 points, probably something more than 30 points. Black's territory is very uncertain, but black does have the potential to cut off this one white stone, which would immediately give black something like 30 points on the left side. So you can see that while attacking, if black skillfully makes use of these weaknesses that white has, white can quickly catch up in territory. I mean, black can catch up in territory. Black has more than 10 points on the upper side. It all depends on whether white jumps in here or not, or if black slides in here or not. This is a very important move here. Black has some territory here. So I would say that black has potential, a lot of potential to catch up in territory. And for the time being, this whole white group is in danger. So it's not going to die probably. After this, white can capture the one stone and has one eye there, and it should be possible for white to make another eye in the general area. I don't know if this final move is better here or maybe a bit wider. White can capture the stone anyway. White has a forcing move here. So white does have what looks like, it looks like it's good enough to be eye space. So white already played this forcing move. White can sort of choose just about any point in the area. Like this looks like it's a reasonable idea. Somewhere in the area to make some territory, a living shape. And at some point, black would like to make use of forcing moves in this area to force white to put another stone in. But eventually, in order to take a lead in territory, black has to play this move at some point. White is pausing right now, probably using some of the extra time to think about this next move, which I'm suggesting here. More solid net here is also possible. This would be not quite as sure of capturing the one black stone, but it's another potential move. Or white could be trying something a bit more adventurous towards black on the, but it does look like it's a fairly strong black group to me. Just to recap on the rules, the game, it's a pair goal game, of course, so it's the female players and male players are taking turns playing their moves. Each move is played with 30 seconds per move, so that's the thinking time. There's no basic time, but the players do have overtime of 1 minute, 10 times. So it's a total of 10 minutes that they can use when they get into trouble or when they want to think about the game. So since there was a kind of a pause before white played this move, I'm sort of assuming that white must have used one of the extra time periods. So I would expect black to answer this. It's a double purpose move that not only does it save the 5 stones, it makes the connection here on the left, so it's a good shape. And white is probably thinking of playing here or here. This move doesn't really work anymore after white has played that exchange. So I'd say this looks slightly better for black, but there's still a lot of very difficult fighting to continue, just to fix the position in the center. The timing of the big moves like this. This move has to be played at a time when black is fairly sure of winning by territory, because it's a simple territory move. It doesn't have any attacking potential involved in it. So it might be better to play moves like this first, which have more potential to be an attacking move. So that's another question that black has to answer. And we can see black is paused. Oh, maybe we have to look at this game a bit more, because now black is attacked very strongly. It looks like this could be a final battle in this game. So if white loses, then this move could become the losing move. It was a dangerous move. White plays a hane. Black is going to curl around. And the question is, can white capture these black stones? So white has a forcing move here, threatening to capture the 2 stones, the 5 stones here. Let's say black just plays a normal connection like this, and white plays here. Black pushes through. Black pushes through again. White cannot fill the liberty because there's too many cutting points, so white pulls back. In the center here, well, we could get rid of that exchange. In the center here, it's not really working for black. It looks like it could become a seki, but if black fills this liberty, white's going to win the semi-eye. If black pushes through here, black doesn't have time to capture any of these white stones before the black group dies. So let's go back a few moves. And take another look at this fight. The variation I was just showing sort of indicates that it's not going to work for black to try to attack white in the center. So the question is, what happens on this side? And when we look at this, black has only 3 liberties, while white has 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a disaster for black, but it takes us back to this move, in which I had black play a relatively normal move. The question is, what happens if black plays to fill a liberty? And so if black does that, and white tries the same idea, now one of white's liberties is filled. And black will win this by 1 move. So this is an idea that black might have. The question is, what if white pushes through once more? Because again, white can capture these black stones with a net like this. Oh, instead black played the jump here. And I'm going to say that it looks like white can just capture these stones. Now let's see if there's 2 ways to do it. Like this is the way that I was just showing. And if black pushes through here, white extends. Black plays here, white here. If black, and we've already seen that this side does not work for black. It's 3 liberties, and white has 4. If black cuts here, again, black is not going to have enough liberties to win in the center. So this looks like it's just a win for white in the local fight to capture. Otherwise, white could push here. Oh, this is what happened in the game. And if white continues to push, this is not good, because black can cut here. But if white at some point extends a liberty, like for instance to play here, or maybe even this one works. Yes. White can win the semi actually. So locally this was bad for black. Covering here, allowing white to capture 3 stones instead of just the 1 was a bad exchange for black. Now black plays here. This looks like it could easily be the final battle of this game. Black is trying to set up some way to cut off these white stones. So for instance, if white plays here, and black pushes through here, this could easily be very damaging to white. With the entire white group in danger of being killed. So that doesn't look very good. So what if white plays the cut here? Black will have to pull back, or might push through here once. That's a difficult question. Let's have white play here. And the question is, what happens after this? This looks very dangerous for white on the upper side. If white plays here, then black covers. If white plays the shape move, then black can just cut here. So black would capture 4 white stones. And we can see that white is actually taking a good amount of time on this one move because it is a decisive part of the game. Otherwise, maybe white can play the connection here, which would stop black from cutting here. This would become a trade. In which black gets the upper left corner. But actually white is probably not losing too much in this trade. White would have the Sente would have the tempo to play something on the left side. And white's not in danger of dying or anything. And black has not actually gained as much territory as you might think, just taking this corner. So there's a lot of complicated fighting here that could happen, but I'm suggesting maybe white's going to be okay with the cut here. Actually white played this one and cut, and black squeezed here. So this is a completely different variation than what I was expecting. The next move I was going to talk about was the attachment here, which seems to be it looked like it was going to be a safer way for white to connect up. But black has played here and starts to squeeze here. White captures. And black's idea is to jump here now, which looks like it's going to win the semi-eye on the left. So it's a very tactical game here. It's very complicated. White has already lost the semi-eye on the left. The question is, how is white going to squeeze to make two eyes for this white group? Because it's not alive yet. And ideally, white would like to be able to save this stone, making a potential eye on the left side at some point in the fight. So if white can make a potential eye on the left side and secure a life for this group in the process, then the overall game is probably okay for white. Otherwise, if white has to live on the upper side and black gets to capture this stone, I think the territory will start looking good for black. So it's still a crucial fight, decisive fight that's happening here. Okay, yes, I think we're ready to, okay, white played here. White does have a lot of forcing moves here. For instance, if white plays this way, if black plays here and white plays this way, this might not be exactly what white is thinking of doing, but one way that this works is that white can squeeze like this. And connect underneath. So this is the general idea that white has here, which would start a counterattack on these stones and more complications. And like all the top players play very complicated games like this. But personally, I know Naiwai is a very strong fighter too, so she sort of likes this kind of game. I get the feeling that she's leading us into this kind of technically complicated game. So I think I'd like to go back to the other game in the semifinals here with Iyama playing Park. This is Ichiriki and Fujisawa Rina playing against, let's see, what were the colors? I think in this game it was black who was Ichiriki and Fujisawa Rina. And they're still in the middle game, so it's going to be interesting. And they're playing against Park Jung-wang and Choi Jeong, excuse me if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, from Korea. So I'd like to get back to this game. Let's just start from the beginning again. Okay, so this game starts with oh, sorry. And so this is the ladder variation in which white takes in a ladder here. And instead of finishing the ladder, white played away to this side. And then a normal ladder break would be a move like this, but black played this ladder break, leading to a big fight on the right side. Why don't I change the orientation? I'll start with black playing this corner. And white played here, black attached here. And for the time being, the ladder is fairly difficult for black to realize. So the ladder breaking move is not easily achieved. So the local fight is very important. It's going to continue here for a while. And with this, white has extended to 5 liberties at least. So black has to escape. And white lives in the corner. So this, there was a very simple logic to this fight here. And black pushes here. The ladder still favors white. But fairly soon, like even if black plays this move, for the time being, the ladder favors black. Just to show you that ladder that I was talking about, this ladder actually favors white after white plays the bamboo joint here. It's an interesting position because at this point white has to turn the ladder around a little bit and then chase this way. So after this it just becomes a normal ladder again and it ends up in this direction. So white's going to capture the whole black group. But of course, if white does that, black does not need to escape from the ladder yet, but can chase once more. And this will be a ladder breaking move. So this is one way black could have played. But instead, black played this move. White pushed, black extended. And again, I was expecting black to leave the ladder for the time being and continue with the fight here in the center. But black actually extended here. For the moment, the ladder does favor black. These 2 stones work as a ladder breaking move. And white counterattacks on the upper side. Black extends here. White jumps. So the upper side, the whole upper side is starting to look like it's going to be a white territory. Black finds this weakness in white's territory, and white answers very solidly. So I get the feeling at this point that white seems to think, they seem to think they are in a lead. Black pushes through and cuts once. I was exploring the idea of cutting here for white, but instead white just covered. So white does seem to be satisfied with the status quo. Black plays the knight's move, plays a hane, and extends. So black has escaped out into the center. White plays the large point here, and black plays here. So black has established a loose connection in the center of the board. And white has a lead in territory. So like white has close to 30 points in this upper right area. And something more than 10 points, I would say, in the upper left corner. It's not all of it going to be white's territory yet. But of course, if we assume that this box-like area does eventually become white's territory, it's going to be something like 20 points. So black can easily take some of that away with moves like this or moves like this. And so to a certain extent, it's not established yet. But white does have something like 10 points in this area. So that makes it about 40 points with some extra territory here. So white has something like 45 points. Black has virtually no territory on the upper half of the board. Something like 20, 25 points seems reasonable to expect in the lower left, and then something like 10 points in the lower right. So obviously black doesn't have enough yet, but we'll have to be getting some extra on the left or the right side, or with an attack on this white group here. And so we're back with the game here. Let's see, that moves, yes. Okay, さっきのところ。So we'll start from here. So white played this move, which is an attack on black in the upper right. The black group is not going to be alive if white plays here. So black slides on the second line to make an eye on the side, and black has a potential eye in this area. So it's not in that much danger. And white actually adds a stone to the left side. This is the last big territorial point. So white now has something like a 15-point lead at least. And black plays a hane. White's probably going to cover here. Oh, white played the more solid move here. And black plays here. We can see black is preparing for an attack on the lower side. And white crawls. And black plays the capping move. So if again, white does have a sizable advantage in territory. White has something like something slightly more than 50 points, if we're going to call this left side white's territory. There is still a little bit of aji there. And black, so black's something like 15 points behind even before komi. But black does have a very strong attack in the immediate area. So it all depends on what happens with this attack. Okay, what black ignored the attachment to take profit on this side. So white got this exchange in and jumped. So this is white's attempting to make eyes here. We can see the shape of playing this Atari and then playing a hane underneath here is one way white can get an eye on the side. So white's looking at that potential. So black invades here. White connects. Black has to save this stone. So black goes straight down. Now if white connects here, black can just play this move, and it looks like it's safe. Or otherwise, black could play this way. So there's a number of ways that black can try to connect up to the two stones, because if white plays here, black can just push through and cut here to save the stones. So that's one way that black can try to save them. So instead of connecting here, white plays this move, which is threatening kind of a squeeze here. If white gets to play here next, then you can see that the liberties are starting to fill there. And so it's a way for white to try to get out into the center. Black pushes, so white's going to cover that. And still looking at the covering here. Black cuts here. Black has to cut fairly soon now. And white pushes against this, saving the two stones on the side. Black will probably pull back. Oh, black extended. So this is a very strong threat to cut. White probably has to answer with something like this. Yes. And black covered here. So black is playing very thickly. It looks like black is going to try to win, catching up in territory in this area and various thickness throughout the board. White is still not alive yet. White extends. Black cuts here. So this is getting rid of the potential squeeze in the center and also gaining some territory. Black extends here. This is usually a forcing move, threatening to cut, push through and cut next. So white slides. This is a rather thin shape. White has to be careful when black plays moves like this because there is a push through and cut that's implied. Black curls around here. Black's starting to build territory in this general area and still has an eye on these white stones here that are not 100% alive. White plays once here. This is to prevent this black move, which could come maybe after this exchange. Threatening to push through and cut here or to wedge here to make a semi out of it. So this is a danger that white had to answer after this black move. And white extended here. So white is starting to try to connect up to this group in the center, but black's not allowing that. So a lot still hinges on how white can handle this weak group. White cuts here. Looking at a weakness in black's position. Black is forced to make a choice here because white, first of all, is threatening to make a life with the hane underneath. If black extends down here, white will not have an eye there, but will have a cut here to make forcing moves from above. So black took. This allows white to make one eye with sente. Black plays once here. And the threat behind this move is that after this, black can push through and cut here at any point. The question is which side to cut. But for instance, something like this is something that black can do to cut this one stone off. Black starts with this move. And white has two options if we just look at the lower side alone. White can play here to make one eye with sente. If white only needs one eye and maybe has a potential eye in the center, then white can do this and has one eye if white can make another eye with the next move. Otherwise, if white doesn't have that option but has some ko-threats, white can play this way, black will play here, white will start a ko. And if white has enough ko-threats to force black to connect, then white does have a ko for two eyes. So there's these two options that white has on the lower side. And of course, when the endgame starts, the best move locally is for white to play a hane here to reduce black's territory. So there's three different ways that white can play in this area. When making eyes, it's one of these two. So before choosing, it makes sense for white to be playing something elsewhere in the board, just to see how black's going to continue here. And then depending on what happens with white's connection towards the left side, white's going to be able to choose between making a ko of it or making a sente eye, or just leaving it. If white gets to connect up in the center, white can just leave it and eventually play the endgame move. So white took the one stone at this point. And so black does have a cut here that black might want to use. But black starts with the push through here, and white's going to answer here. And when black cuts here, white just connects. Black plays a hane here. This is still looking at a potential fight to capture. If black plays here, and white plays here, and we assume something like this. Let's see, how close is this? This is a fight to capture. it looks like white still has some extra liberties. But maybe only one. So it's a fairly close fight to capture. Which means black gets all of these moves on the outside, this forcing move. So white curled around once, and then black cuts here. So the whole white group is not settled yet, but white is getting profit on the left side as this happens. So white plays here, and so more and more in this game, I get the feeling that black is not going to get enough territory to make up for the territorial gain that white took early in the game. And a lot depends on, it will probably end up with this ko that I was talking about on the lower side. Of course, if white can get a potential eye in the center, then white has a life with this move. So there's still the two potential ways of making use of this area. And black plays first now. So this has taken away the sente eye, this eye with tempo that white had, but there's still a ko here. White immediately plays the ko, and this is going to be a ko. White will be using ko threats in the center of the board. The point is, if black connects here, again white will have, it's going to be a ko, but white has a potential eye here. So white played a ko threat here. This pretty much makes an eye in this area, but white doesn't have the second eye yet, but this peep is usually going to be forcing. And for instance, if we assume a move sort of like this, for instance, and black covering from the outside, and then white playing something like this, with this forcing move here, this is an Atari, white does have two eyes in this shape. So this is one example of how white can make two eyes. So black switches the corner here. This is still a corner that is fairly wide open. So it's a kind of a tickly point for white. It shouldn't really be very dangerous for white, but there is some bad odds there. So as I was saying, if we have this happen and this happen, then white is already sort of alive, just locally. So instead of allowing that to happen, black has now played the vital point in white's eye shape, which is this one. White covers. And black cannot save the one stone, but it is reducing white's eye space. And black finished the ko now. So white has only one eye now, but still could try to make another eye with something like this. Again, if black plays on the outside, and we have to remember that white has this forcing move here. So white's stones are completely connected here. This shape would be completely alive. This would just be a living shape. So black has to find a way to stop that. But at this point, playing here would give white a little more extra space. So it looks very difficult for black to try to kill this group. The other option would be to ignore the peep here and try to take sente by playing this one Atari, and then playing from the center, which might be more dangerous. This does look like a semi-eye between, if it was between this black group and this white group, it could be very close. It looks dangerous for white. So actually, instead of playing that peep, white started with this move. And that black did play the Atari here. And extended. So black has given up on the idea of killing white. White can already start with a move like this to start to make eyes. But instead, these top players just don't give anything away. White plays on the right side, taking some more territory. So yes, it is a difficult game for black to try to win with territory. But there's various areas in the board, like this area in the upper left, where there's a lot of bad aji. So black's probably just trying to induce a mistake from white. It doesn't look like it's really going to work very well here. Black does have the peep here, which is a bit troublesome. But, so now black plays here. And this move, it involves the upper left corner, as well as the fight. Black doesn't have this exchange, but there's a potential fight to capture on the right. And so white answered on this side. Because there is a potential fight to capture on the right when black plays here and then plays here. So you can see that this would be a shape where white would have to play a lot of stones inside the white territory to capture those black stones. So this is what black was aiming at. And this is what white tries to avoid with this, which is going to make an eye here in the center. Even if white just plays something like this is going to make an eye here. Meanwhile, and white finally plays the peep, securing a potential two-eye shape there, and cuts here. So this is white's counterattacking. Black does have a slightly dangerous shape on the right side. Meanwhile, the upper left corner, there's this code that's waiting to happen. If white comes underneath, then black can't start a ko here. So this is a dangerous ko that's going to happen eventually. But for the time being, black has to handle these stones, because if at any point white plays the wedge here, black's going to be in trouble on the right side. So that's part of the reason for this move here that white played on the right side. So black doesn't really have time to start this ko yet. Black played an Atari. White connected. And black jumped. And so black has saved these stones and still trying to put pressure on white in the center. Black's still looking at the potential of this move, which could become dangerous for white in the center. So we're not sure whether this white group is completely alive yet. This black group on the right side, it's pretty much alive. White played here. If black answers here, black will have an eye here. And also will have an eye here. So black can easily make two eyes. But instead, black went after the white group in the center. So this looks like it's going to be the final decisive fight. Because white, the question is, can white make two eyes in the center? If this group dies, it will not be good enough for white just to kill this group. So white has to succeed with something here. And white played the hane here. So the strongest move for black is to cut, but black played here. This means white will connect, and black will have to connect. And white will play here. And this is not alive yet, but after black plays here, and white plays here, black can take away the eye here. And we still have a problem of what's going to happen when white does something like this to escape out. So it's a very difficult life and death problem. Of course, Ichiriki is famous for his skill in life and death problems, but he doesn't get to play all the moves because his partner has to play half the moves. So we don't really know what's going to happen. So white played this forcing move. And then played here. And so again, locally, the strongest move for black is to play here. But instead, black played, this one works too. That might even be better. The reason it's better is because if white plays here, then it turns out this move here is forcing, threatening to push through here. Okay, so this is what happened. And now black can go back to the center to protect, maybe to play here. And white pushes. So the idea for white here white's going to try to make an eye in this area. So for instance, if black plays here, and white plays here, and black plays here, white can actually, oh, this is happening. So white can actually play here. And if black plays here, this is going to be a big fight because white can cut here and throw in here. And it's going to be this ko, a huge ko, dangerous for black too. Oh, but black didn't do that. Instead, black connected here, and white made a life. So finally, white is alive. Black's going to capture these stones. So what does this add up to? There's still this ko in the upper left corner. But I think for the time being, it might be a big move just to capture these stones. So let's assume that. Oh no, that didn't happen. That's a strange move. Why did black play this one? Filling the liberty, maybe. Allowed white to escape here, though. That was not good. And black has to come back here, giving white this forcing move. So this was very good for white. And now white can actually go back to the upper side. And the semi here could actually become a seki. Yeah, so it looks like white put a stone in here to stop black from making a seki here. So now this is just dead. And black has started the ko here. So this is going to be a final ko for this game. So this is actually, it's enlarged into slightly more than 30 points. I think it's 31 points now. Yes, 31 points. So this is at least 10 points with some extra in the corner. This is 4 points. So it's 45 points, plus whatever white gets on the left side. And so actually, if black can live in the corner, then it looks like it's going to be fairly close. So it all depends on this code that's just started. This is 7 points here. The territory here is a bit more difficult to count. It's about close to 20 points. And this one is close to 30 points, but they're both smaller. So 50 points, 55 points. And white has something like, did I say 45 points, plus what white has here. So it depends a lot on what happens with the ko. Black cut. And we'll probably just take the ko back. Let's look at ko threats. White doesn't really have very many ko threats because black has such thick positions throughout the board. So let's see. No ko threats in this area. Maybe taking, no, I don't think so. I don't think that's a good ko threat. And so black actually has some ko threats against white in this area. White has very few ko threats overall. Oh, so black didn't even take the ko back. Black extended once here. And white's going to have to crawl. Extending again, it doesn't really work. White can crawl once more. White wins this fight by one move. So white has 3 liberties, black has only 2. So black cannot accomplish much with that. But it's probably thinking of doing something like this to make use of white's damezumari, or lack of liberties, to make the ko much bigger. So this is the idea that black has. And I guess white will have to add another stone here and allow black just to finish off the ko. But it doesn't work, does it? If black finishes off the ko that way, then actually white can still have a ko with capturing here. And black's in damezumari, or lack of liberties on the outside. So this would be just a disaster for black. So instead of finishing the ko, maybe black's just going to play here and start making eyes in the corner. So that whole thing was not really extending here and using the damezumari here was maybe not such a good idea. So white this did happen. Black covers in the corner now. So it's still a ko continuing. So with more than 10 points here, white has close to 60 points in all. And so this is slightly less than 50. And there's some undecided areas in it with the kosumi here, this move here, which is very big, this move here, which is big. But black is going to have trouble to get 60 points plus komi while winning the ko. So I think white seems to have a slight advantage here. So they're continuing playing the ko. So if white is satisfied with territory, a likely ko threat would be this move, which is the largest endgame move at this point. And the second move for ko threat would be this move. So a combination of these two moves would be one way for white to finish the ko. And then jumping in here and saving these stones would be about equal in size. And that would be just about it. And my feeling is that white has a slight advantage. And of course, white doesn't really have any other choices because white doesn't have any good ko threats. So that's the moves that white will have to choose. Yes, white played here. And usually you would expect black just to finish the ko. But of course, if black is unsatisfied with the position, maybe black will try to get something extra by playing this kosumi. Oh, no, black finished the ko. So now it's just going to be an endgame. We're finally at the endgame of the game. So the biggest move is here. And white has more than 60 points. Yes, and if we assume black might actually capture here, which is an 8-point move. If we assume something like this, then black has trouble catching up to white even on the board. So this it might be slightly better to play here. But this again would be a sente endgame move that well, black might leave this again, but it's similar in size to this move. There's a very small difference. So let's see, where did white play? 少し戻ってください. Okay, so white started with the connection here, and obviously this was a bigger move, so it's a bit strange. Black played here, white connected here. And black pushed through here. White covers. And black will probably just connect under. This is a very big move. It would be sente if white got there first. I think black gained a little bit by playing this move, but still, white probably has an edge if white plays here now. Oh, white played one Atari. This is probably going to be forcing. So white played Natari. This is a pretty big move. I think probably black will have to connect. Oh, no, black plays the ko. So black has to gain a little bit more here. Yes, I guess I agree with black playing the ko. But black also, the black's ko threats are going to be a bit more difficult this time. Black's used up all the ko threats in the center, so black could use maybe a push through on the right side here. Or something towards this group. Black seems to have 1 or 2 ko threats in this area, at least. If white left this, it would probably turn into a seki-like shape. So that would be a big value for black. It would be about 20, almost 25 points. So black pushed up here. And white will probably just make an eye or push through here. It doesn't, either way works. Oh, pushing from underneath. Black takes the ko. White has a couple of ko threats on the lower side. White also doesn't seem to have a lot of ko threats though. White cut here. It's a dangerous move, but looks like it would be trouble for black if white played here. Or actually, white could come straight down. So then if black plays on this side, white can throw in here and squeeze from here. So in this case, black doesn't have time to save the stones. If black answers by taking the 1 stone here, then white can play here. Now the fight to capture on the left side looks like it favors white. So this would be bad for black. Thus black answered here, and white took the ko. Black played another ko threat here, and took back the ko. White threw in here. Black played the final ko threat here, and now that's it. White still has 1 or 2 ko threats on the lower side. But of course, throwing in here, well, I guess it's okay to do that. Mm-hmm. White has 2 ko threats in this area. Black has 1 ko threat here, but black is now running out of ko threats. Black could try using this move as a ko threat actually. Black uses the final ko threat on the right side. White still has 1 ko threat in the lower left corner. Mm-hmm. So they're using the big ko threats first. It's interesting. And then now black has to choose maybe this ko threat. This would be too much of a loss of territory. It would be a negative value. So better for black to play this ko threat. Yes. So black cuts here. This is worth about 10 points. So I guess it's bigger than the ko itself. Oh, but white finished the ko. Okay, so this simplifies things anyway. And black will crawl and capture the 2 stones. So that was a 10-point profit on that side, while white will throw in here later, and black will be losing 2 or 3 points there, and 2 points in the corner, so that's 5 points. So white got about, compared to black connecting here, white got about 8 points, and black got 10 points. So comparing to connecting on the second line, black got a small advantage. But of course, white was running out of ko threats also. So the question was white going to be making do with a ko threat like this, which might not be big enough? White did have 1 ko threat here, which probably would not be forcing. So yeah. So white did have a bit of problem choosing a good ko threat next if white allowed black to use this ko threat. So the game is over now. It looks like black has resigned. Black was behind after this white group lived in the center of the board. I think it was probably pretty close on the board before komi. So that's the end of this game. Let's see, is the other game finished? This is the same game. もう一曲の方は The other game looks like it's finished too. So we're probably just waiting for a result in the other game. Yes, in the game between Naiwai and Iyama and Kato, and Naiwai and Chen Yaoye, the players are in the process of filling liberties at this point. So I think the viewers can see a video of the game I was just commentating, the game between Fujisawa Rina and Ichiriki Ryo against Park Jeong-Wang and Choi Jae-Wang. They're going over the game after they're finished. So this game is finished, and the other game being played between Naiwai and Chen Yaoye from China against Iyama Yuta and Kato Keiko from Japan. That game is over also, and they're actually in the process of filling the liberties. So I'm not going to try to catch up to that. But fairly soon we should have a result for that game too. So it was a disappointing loss for black. I think after the fight in the beginning, which involved a ladder breaking move, was not very much of a success for black. So after the point that white captured this black group, making about 30 points in the upper right corner, it became very difficult for black to catch up in territory. And black was attempting to do that by harassing a white group on the lower side. But that eventually turned into an attempted attack to kill, which looked like it could potentially have success at some point. But eventually white managed to make a life. So that was maybe the decisive battle of this game. And even though black trashed most of the upper left corner, making a ko in the corner, and black did have an advantage in ko threats, it wasn't enough to catch up in territory. So in this other game, hey, they're all finished. They're just waiting for the score to be declared. 終局してますね。結果待ちです。Okay, so the other game was won by Naiwai and Chen Yaoye by 1/2 of a point. So it was a half-point difference. That gives me a good excuse for not being able to calculate it for you. And unfortunately for Japan, I guess, both of their teams lost in the semifinals. So the final will be, let's just take this up. It's going to be between Naiwai and Chen Yaoye from China. And their opponent will be Korea, Park Jeongwan, and Choi Jeong from Korea. So it's these two pairs who will be fighting for the champion to win the tournament and challenge KJ and Yi, his partner, and the two Japanese pairs will be fighting for 3rd place tomorrow. So I'll see you again tomorrow morning, Japanese time, and welcome you to be with me to enjoy the next round of this tournament.